After the speech was over, George leaned over and asked Martin Luther King Jr., "Hey, can I have that speech of yours? Can I have that copy?" And Martin Luther King gave it to him. George didn't realize the value of it for, 2 or 3 decades at least. And he kept it folded in a book on his bookshelf. And finally, I think somebody told him or it came upon him that this was a valuable, valuable piece of history. And he brought it out. He had it framed. It's now, he donated it to Villanova University. And so it's over there right now. But what a piece of history. And to be able to talk to Martin Luther King Jr. and ask him, and King actually giving it to him hand to hand right there on stage.
Welcome, everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union Podcast. My name is Abraham Deweese. I'm back in with Soul Man, Brian Solak. And today we have a former NBA player, Wazoo Cougar, in fact, and our special guest, James Donaldson. Welcome back, James.
Hey, good morning, guys. It's great to see you both and hope everybody's doing well. Get this weekend off to a great start.
Indeed. And we really appreciate you coming back.
Absolutely.
A lot of major things, Soul Man. I know you want to bring it up and get James's take on it.
Yeah, I know the world lost an amazing human being, one of your best friends in life recently, Lenny Wilkins. And once I saw that, when, in the news, I thought about you. I mean, I've seen your posts on social media and then reading in the book about how close you two were. It jumped out at me how you were doing, and I reached out to you and you said you'd be willing to come on here and share some of the stories about Lenny. So please talk about your relationship.
More than happy to. And we lost another dear friend, Brian, George Raveling, back on September 1.
That's right.
So to lose both these iconic figures in my life within 6 weeks, boy, it's been a tough, heavy load to carry and to deal with. But I'm just so happy and fortunate and blessed to have spent as much time with them both as I did over the years, especially Lenny. Lenny living up here in Seattle with where I'm at. George was down in Los Angeles, and so we had more of a phone conversation relationship over the years, except for last summer, July 24. I took a trip down to LA, spent the whole day with George Raveling, and that was just beautiful. Just to
Awesome.
reminisce, reconnect, and talk about WSU days and the years after that. And both these guys had been in my corner every step of the way since WSU days and the Sonic days. Staunch, positive role models, mentors, coaches, and friends. And so I'm going to miss both of them tremendously. I've missed them both already tremendously.
Where did
But with Lenny, I had seen Lenny we tried to schedule a breakfast, just he and I, the last 15 years probably. Every 2 or 3 months we would have breakfast, just one-on-one, and talk and share what's going on with our lives. And, and basketball was part of the conversation, but not a huge part. It was really about a lot of things about life, career opportunities, business opportunities, societal issues that are going on. He would share a lot of great stories with me about what he had gone through in those early days of the NBA back in the 50s and 60s, growing up and especially traveling through the South where, a lot of the Black players especially weren't too welcomed at the time. Matter of fact, I just spoke to a peer of Lenny's the other day, Artis Gilmore.
Okay.
Artis played at the University of Kentucky. No, he played at Louisville. No, Jacksonville. Universe. But, Artis was telling me a story where Lenny was playing with the St. Louis Hawks and playing against the Boston Celtics at an exhibition game in Lexington, Kentucky. This is back in the early 60s. And they would not let the Black players eat at the restaurant, at the hotel. And, Lenny told me these kind of stories as well. And, but Lenny was the kind of guy, he didn't really let it outwardly and visibly affect him. I'm sure it affected him. I'm sure it bothered him. But, he didn't carry a grudge. He wasn't bitter about all the things he had to go through. And I'm so grateful that he paved the way for a lot of the great players to come after him. And for all of us NBA players to this day, we ride on the shoulders of all these great men who were trailblazers and dealt with all the things that we didn't have to deal with. And he was that kind of guy. But I'm going to miss him tremendously. I talked to him just 2 days before he passed.
Wow.
Wow.
And, I was setting up another breakfast for us. And, he told me, he's like, well, we're going to have to put it off just a little bit. My health is a little bit iffy. And little did I know, and I'm so glad I got a chance to talk with him and let him know how much I loved him. Little did I know, 2 days later, he'd be passed on. So you just never know. And that's why it's so important to spend time with those that you love while you can. And while we're both here to talk to each other, see each other, feel each other, touch each other in person. The funny thing about this age of technology now is everything is on, screens and videos like we're doing now.
Mhm.
But nothing replaces, in-person get-togethers. And I hope everybody coming into this Thanksgiving week and weekend will get a chance to be in person as much as possible.
Right on. Speaking of in person, when was the first time you met him? Was that when you were drafted in '79 with the
That was,
Supersonics?
yes, that was the first time I met him. I didn't meet him till 1980.
Okay.
I got drafted in '79, and but the Sonics just won the World Championship, NBA World Championship that year. There was no room at the end, as they say. Uh, me coming in, especially as a fourth round draft pick, trying to make the team on a championship team, that wasn't happening. They had 2 first round picks who made the team, James Bailey and Benny Johnson. So
Okay.
they kept them naturally.
Right.
For me, my agent talked to me and he said, well, chances are you go and try out with the team. They'll take a look at you. They'll let you go because they're not going to eat one of the guaranteed contracts just for you. So it's better for you to head on overseas. And I did. I played in Italy my very first year, Siena, Italy, and was able to play, 40 minutes a night and go out and try to get my double doubles, points and rebounds, and really start honing which I needed to do. I needed to play and hone my skills. Sitting on the end of an NBA bench and not playing, not practicing much wouldn't have helped me develop as quickly as I did. So the next year I came back, 1980, and tried out with the Sonics during training camp. And that's when the first time I met Lenny Wilkins.
Right on. And we want to get back to that overseas, of course, conversation. But when you came back, what stuck with you with Lenny Wilkins? I mean, did he, or the other way around? I mean, what stuck with him to say this time we're going to keep you around?
Well, little did I know, I didn't know him and George Raveling had such a tight and close relationship. They were
Oh.
actually near childhood friends from college days, especially. I don't think about high school, but college days, they became really good, close, dear friends. Lenny would tease me and tell me stories how George tried to come by and take out Lenny's sister on a date all the time. So they became really, really good friends. And so, unbeknownst to me, they did have conversations between the two of them. George talking to Lenny, saying, "Hey, just give James a chance. He's coachable. He works hard. He's going to listen. He's not going to give you any problem." And so, Lenny didn't tell me that, but when I got to camp, and that's how I was, very coachable, very attentive, and worked very, very hard. Lenny took a look at that and said, wow, maybe I can make something out of this kid. And so he ended up keeping me on the squad, put one of the guys on injured reserve. I think it was Dennis Autry or somebody who had a bad back and his back was acting up. And so I was able to make the team. And that was the very, very beginning of my NBA career. And Lenny was really responsible for that. Taking time to be patient and let me develop into a real NBA player, which I had the chance to do with my 3 years here in Seattle.
It is so cool that there's a statue of him in front of downtown Seattle, in front of the stadium there. What might today's generation not understand about Lenny Wilkins? I mean, if like an 8th grader goes up and sees Lenny Wilkins statue and he says, "Who's this?" And I mean,
Well, an eighth grader's not even going to remember the 1979 World Championship.
True. Good point.
I think most folks don't really remember his playing career. He's a Hall of Fame basketball player as well. I think most folks remember Lenny's legacy mainly as a coach. And I think he coached the most NBA games in NBA history. I think he's third now in wins as far as the number of wins accumulated over those years. So most people, mainly because of the championship in 1979, and Lenny was the coach, and then he became such a fixture in Seattle after those years, and then moved on to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Atlanta Hawks, Toronto Raptors, New York Knicks. So he had other coaching stints, but it all began here, and that was the highlight and the most, the pinnacle of his career here. And people remembered him for that. People loved him for that. He gave back to the community so much. The Odessa Brown Children's Clinic here in Seattle, he was a big, big supporter of. He had his annual Lenny Wilkins Foundation fundraiser event every single year. Would bring in players and coaches from all over the country in nice, big black tie affair, and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, mainly for Odessa Brown. And then very philanthropic, very giving of his time. And so I wasn't able to make the statue dedication unveiling that day. I called Lenny the day before. I was having some health issues myself, and I said, "Hey, Lenny, I just don't think I can stand on my feet and be out there too much." So he said, "Hey, James, don't worry about it. You go and take care of yourself. We'll catch up here real soon." And we did. So that was Lenny Wilkins, and I think most people are going to remember him for being such a great coach and a great humanitarian. Not so much for the playing, unfortunately, because he was such a great player too.
Did he ever get mad? He doesn't seem like he ever got mad.
No, I've been talking about that. No. As far as raising his voice, I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice and scream and cuss and holler. He communicate a lot with body language.
Yeah.
When he was upset, and you could tell. I mean, he would cross his arms, and he'd kind of turn away from you a little bit, and that meant he was really, really upset with you. And so during the game, some coaches have that voice that just carries even through all the noise at the game. Lenny didn't have that kind of voice anyway. And so you could see it, though, from across the court or down the court, that he had his arms crossed and he turned that shoulder to you and, had that perturbed look on his face. That spoke volumes much, much, much louder than a voice would have.
So
Right
aside
on.
from that affectation, what made him a great coach? Because I know you probably had a dozen different coaches in your long career. What do you think stood out in his coaching?
Well, he was an excellent X and O's man. So he knew the game. He knew how to draw up plays. He knew how to get the guys to execute the play the way he needed it to. But even more than that, he was a great people management person. I don't think he ever had any knuckleheads on his team, troublemakers that really caused him a lot of grief. You look at his players he had throughout the years, starting with Seattle. I mean, Jack Sikma and Fred Brown and John Johnson, Dennis Johnson, Gus Williams. Lonnie Shelton might have been the most problematic player he had.
Mhm.
And Lonnie was a great, great player, a little bit immature at times, but gifted so athletically that, so he was the only one that Lenny had to reel in from time to time. And then you look at his teams in Cleveland. I mean, just great, classy guys like Craig Elo and Brad Daugherty, Mark Price, Steve Kerr, Ron Harper. I mean, he just never had any real knuckleheads who would give him problem. I think he was a better coach for guys who were established and veteran players than he was for very, very young players, which he never really had a whole bunch of very, very young players on his team. 2 or 3, the draft picks, the first-round draft picks would make the team. But other than that, no, he really was an excellent coach in managing people, knowing his personnel, knowing the personalities, playing to your strengths. During that championship run, when he moved Jack Sigma, from power forward to center. And Tom Lagarde came in, Dennis Autry came in, and vice versa. He was able to make these interchangeable places. And when I started playing full time for him, I was a big, big, strong center. He moved me to center and moved Jack back to power forward. So, those kind of management pieces of always being ahead of the game is what made him such a great coach.
Right out. And you had to say Craig Elo because you two just need to have a Wazoo Cougar pop up in the show, don't you?
Oh, go Cougs.
Wow. That's it.
You mentioned your friend George Raveling, who passed away back in September. Please share a story or two about your relationship with him.
Yeah, with George, I met him as a recruit out of Sacramento, California. First time I ever left Sacramento was to come up to the Northwest and land in Palouse, in Pullman, Washington, of all places. All the cornfields and the rolling hills and everything else, and a little prop plane taking us in from Spokane. But George was there. George had his assistant coaches and his scouts recruit me from Sacramento. So I didn't meet George until I got to Washington State University at the summer of 1975, 50 years ago. And, George became that second father figure for me. That I had a great dad. My father was with me throughout his whole life and throughout all my growing up years. So I had that. And I probably needed more of that. So when I left home to go to Washington State, George became that, kind of in a role model, father figure, coaching kind of way. And I was very, very young, very, very inexperienced with basketball. I'd only played my 1 year of high school basketball my senior year. And so I'm just learning the game. And George was very patient with me my freshman, sophomore year. He basically just had me training with the team, practicing every day, getting bigger, stronger, faster in the weight room and on the track and field and running stadium stairs and learning the game of basketball. And so I would be one of those players. I'd get in the game maybe if we're up by 20 points or down by 20 points with 25 seconds to go. He'd throw me in there real quick. So that was my first couple of years, but I was developing and I was learning. And George saw that I was willing to learn. I wanted to be coached. I wanted to be good. And George was the guy that really helped me tap into that potential that I did have and I didn't know I had. And so that was George Raveling for me and stayed a dear friend throughout all those years afterwards.
Fantastic. George Raveling, of course, the coach at Wazoo. And I believe he had a stint at USC after that.
Yes. Well, after Washington State, he went to Iowa.
Iowa, okay.
Yeah, University of Iowa for 5, 6 years, I think, something like that. And then over to USC for another 5, 6, 7 years. So he had a great coaching career in college, never quite reaching the pinnacle of an NCAA championship or March Madness and all those things. But he really, affected in a positive way so many young men, molding us and shaping us. Matter of fact, I have my own podcast show, and I did 4 different episodes of a tribute to George Raveling.
Where's your podcast?
Yeah, well,
please promote that.
We will, yeah. Oh, well, you can find it on YouTube. It's James Donaldson Standing Above the Crowd podcast.
Okay.
So you can just pull it down from YouTube. I've got 20, 25 episodes up there or so.
Nice.
We do it weekly. So I had coaches from back in the early 70s when George got to Washington State in 72. His first coaches who were coaching with him, some of the players from 72, 73, who were just before me. I got there in 75. And I hadn't seen some of these folks in 50 years.
Wow.
And the stories they had about George Raveling and the growth that he underwent as a young first-time coach, taking on a major basketball program, being the first African-American coach in the Pac-8 history. And so he had a lot of pressure on him and a lot of expectations on him to really do well. And we all came in, a lot of us African-American players, especially from big urban cities. Georgia was notorious for recruiting us from these big old urban cities of Detroit and Chicago and Toledo and Atlanta and Sacramento and LA. So we'd all come to Pullman. And a lot of us, for the first time, were away from home. And we're all, 18, 19, 20 years old. And George became that father figure, that guiding light for all of us to keep us and to help mold us into the young men that we became and eventually into the people who we are now.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Yes. I'd have to ask, did George like doing the broadcasting? I know he did a lot of college basketball games. Did he enjoy doing that?
He did. He did. He was very entrepreneurial actually after basketball. He got into a lot of positive life coaching, especially online. He had a Facebook page and was always promoting positive wisdom thoughts. He was great with his announcing of college basketball. I don't think he enjoyed the travel as much as he used to when he was traveling with the team. I did some announcing myself. I didn't enjoy the traveling with the media team. I really enjoyed it more with the basketball team. But he did that for a few years. But he really made his mark when he went to work with Nike, and he became
Oh,
the Asia brand marketing for Nike, especially
wow.
the China market. He was the number one guy heading that whole department over there for about 15 years.
Okay.
And that's one thing he told me, because I went through some ups and downs in my life back in my early 60s. And this is kind of what my book is about too. And George told me, he's like, James, I didn't really hit my stride until I was 63 years old when Nike came calling. Then it took my life to a whole nother level. He said, James, your best years are ahead of you. You got to hang in there and you're going to really hit your stride in a few years. Get through what you're going through and better days are ahead. And George was so great at doing those kind of motivational talks and uplifting talks and always bringing you up and bringing you along, which was the great thing about George.
I had to look it up, so I'm not declaring that I knew this prior, but apparently George Raveling was at the March on Washington,
Mhm.
and he he owned the "I Have a Dream" speech. Dr. Martin Luther King gave it to him. That is it. That is an amazing piece of history.
Wow.
Yeah, that is history, I tell you. And we talked about that when I went to visit him. He let me videotape his whole library he had in his house, thousands and thousands of books. He's a voracious reader, and books stacked from floor to ceiling, and mementos and trophies. And he showed me the photo of him at the March on Washington, up on stage, just 2 or 3 people away from Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
Wow.
And he was
Okay.
acting as a bodyguard. I think he was first year in college at Villanova. They needed some big guys to kind of be bodyguards for Martin Luther King. George and his friend volunteered, and they ended up right there on stage. After the speech was over, George leaned over and asked Martin Luther King Jr., hey, can I have that speech of yours? Can I have that copy? And Martin Luther King gave it to him. George didn't realize the value of it for, 2 or 3 decades at least. And he kept it folded in a book on his bookshelf. And finally, I think somebody told him or it came upon him that this was a valuable, valuable piece of history. And he brought it out. He had it framed. He donated it to Villanova University. And so it's over there right now. What a piece of history. And to be able to talk to Martin Luther King Jr. and ask him, and King actually giving it to him
Yeah.
hand to hand right there on stage. Wow. I mean, that's history. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Tremendous piece of history. It also said here that he was offered millions of dollars for that, but instead he gave it to Villanova so it could
Yes.
be in a museum.
Yeah, in the museum there. Yeah, I don't know if he gave it to him or it's just on loan or donated, but I think the family still owns it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but it's displayed there at Villanova.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask about your relationship with Gus Williams.
Mm, yeah. We lost so many guys this year. 25 has been a tough, tough year. Losing, I'll name a few: Gus Williams, Flick Watts, Junior Bridgman, just few days ago, Michael Ray Richardson. It's just so sad to lose so many. And then, of course, George, Raveling, and Lenny Wilkins. So a really tough year this year. Gus and I were friends for 40 years. We were teammates for 3 years when I was with the Sonics, and just a great guy as far as, his love for the game, his love for life, happy-go-lucky guy, played hard, was a great player. And unfortunately, he had some health issues that plagued him his last 5 years of his life, coming down with pneumonia and meningitis all at the same time. And it just really took its toll on him. Was bedridden for the last 5 years, but I got a chance to stay in touch with him with FaceTime, which I guess one of the good things about technology. FaceTiming him. He was in New York, I was in Seattle, and just kind of letting him know that I cared about him, that we all Sonic Nation loved him, and we miss him. We wish him well. The family asked me to help out when Gus did pass, as far as trying to generate some public recognition and acknowledgement for him, some funds even to pay for the memorial service. And we were able to do that. About $30,000 or so we raised with GoFundMe. And the Sonic fans are just so generous and so helpful. I was able to fly back to New York and be part of a wonderful memorial service, and meet the family, and just they took me in like I'm family, and we're still all together to this day. I just talked to his step niece the other day, and so that was Gus, just a guy that I never saw him get upset about anything, but he was determined on the basketball court. And he was determined in life to just live it to the fullest, and he did do just that.
That's awesome. I remember what a great player he was, but then after he left Seattle, I didn't really hear much about him. So I appreciate you sharing that. It gives me a chill, man. What a good guy.
Well, he was from Mount Vernon, New York, and came all the way out here to go to USC for college basketball. So from an East Coast to a West Coast guy, and then all of a sudden he's playing, drafted by the Golden State Warriors. They win the championship in 1975, and Gus is part of that team. And then he moves on up here to Seattle and wins a championship here with the Sonics in '79. So, but people forget how great a player he was too. I mean, just an all-star and putting up 20, 25 points a night, and stealing the ball and leading the fast break. Just a great athlete and great player.
So I want to try to avoid the three of us being old men on the rocking chairs screaming at clouds, but sometimes I just have to, because you played in what I thought was the best era of basketball, these in '90s, and I'm just curious, because it's more polished and made for TV nowadays. Can you talk about, for maybe some of the younger people out there, what NBA was like during your era, and how? Well, I'm just going to let you say it in your own words, like how it's different than today.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more of you put your hard hat on and your work pail and you go to work. I mean, we played hard. We didn't take time off. We didn't load manage. We night after night. I mean, I think I played about 5 years in a row and about 500 some consecutive games without missing. And that's how we were. We played hard. We looked forward to the competition. No one took a night off. No one took a mental health day just because you didn't feel like playing. We played through all the aches and pains and the colds and the flus. And I mentioned Artis Gilmore earlier in this, and Artis and I used to go against each other, and two big old guys, banging away. And we're probably the two biggest and strongest, most physical players in the league. And we would wrestle each other all game long. But that's how it was. You didn't back down. Every team was loaded with other great players. Being a big guy like I am, every team had a real bona fide 7-footer that you had to face against. So if it wasn't Kareem, it was Artis or Bob Lanier or Moses Malone or Tree Rollins. I mean, night after night, you could not take a night off. So we didn't play for social media. We didn't play for the clickbaits. Maybe when ESPN came along, you might catch a little highlight on ESPN, but that was a total different era. And nowadays, the guys are, they're compensated and paid very, very well, long before they even prove themselves a lot of times. And so I think they lose the incentive for what winning is all about. They're fat, they're happy, they're content. Why play hard? Why play every night? I look at the Olay defense. I call it now the Olay defense.
Yeah, Matador.
Yeah, step aside. You're playing like a matador, stepping aside and just letting the guys go to the basket at will. And that didn't happen back in our day. I mean, we would put guys down through the floorboard and take them down. Uh, you had to be tough to come on in there against us big guys like that. And so you had to be crafty. You had to be excellent at your craft. I mean, a Dominic Wilkins or a Michael Jordan, I mean, they had to pick their spots if they're going to come in there and try to dunk on you. They picked their spots wisely, but they also paid the price many times. And so that's the difference now. I really cherish those days back in the 80s and 90s. I think that was the best in the golden age of the NBA. Now it's a bunch of three-point shots and a bunch of guys, like I said, playing matador defense. And, last night, I think the Lakers, who they played? I can't remember who they played. They put up over 260 points or something, 140 to 130 something.
My.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible. I mean, there's no defense played. I don't watch much of it. I get enough on some highlight clips, and that's about all I need to see of today's NBA. But my guys are the guys I played with back in the 80s and 90s.
There's a terrific young man just was on a show with us Thursday named Noah Dickerson, former University of Washington Husky basketball player from early 2010s, and he was mentioning what you're talking about there. He's mentioning that somehow in basketball, similar to baseball, the guys with the calculators and the spreadsheets figured out the most profitable way to score points and to handle players, and this load management and the high scoring is all a function of making sure you're maximizing the money that you put into the players, because they get he mentioned with the pace of today's basketball, everybody's getting injured all the time.
Yeah.
And so you have to load management almost because you're overdoing it with what the human body's capable of. So yeah, once the nerds with the spreadsheets get involved, I got to be honest, James, I start losing it. It used to just be like back in your day. It was man on man. You man up and you see who's the best.
That's true. And I'm not sure what the activities are for the guys during the off season anymore. But we used to treat basketball as a 12-month-a-year job. I mean, if you weren't in the weight room and getting bigger, stronger, faster during the off season, you were playing basketball, against the best competition all during the summer leagues and everything else. So you came into camp in basketball shape. Injuries didn't occur nearly as often as they do now. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but I think also, the pays are so exorbitant now. It took me about 10 years to realize it all paid the same, right? Whether I played or not, whether I played 45 minutes or I got a DNP, coach's decision, it all paid the same. I was a teammate with Bill Walton, and Bill was always hurt. And he would always try to talk me into sitting on the sideline with him and ride the stationary bike over there. I'm like, Bill, I can't do that. I got to go practice. I got to go play. I can't be sitting over here with you. But he got paid the same as I did, and he's not playing. So, it took me about 10 years to realize that. But now these kids realize it early. And unfortunately, even in the college game and in the high school games, they're realizing the money just keeps flowing in, whether you play hard or not. And I just don't think it ends well for so many of these guys who don't learn that, patience is a virtue, and you have to persevere. You have to push yourself through adversity. But these young kids and young people too, they don't know how to deal with adversity a lot of times because, they're not made to face adversity like we used to.
Good point. We talked to the X-Man, Xavier McDaniel, a while back, and he mentioned one player that he's usually didn't get along with Wes Matthews. Everybody knows the infamous choking incident, but that's not why I'm asking this question. Was there one player though in the NBA that you either gave you a hard time on the court or you just hated facing every time when you went out there? Just curious.
Well, not really. Big guys are a little bit different. We tend to have a mutual respect for each other, probably knowing that we could seriously hurt each other if we wanted to. So very few chokeholds or you actually swing a fist at somebody. I mean, I got into my dust up from time to time, but they quickly, die down after you swing a fist or two or you huff and puff. So big guys kind of treat that a little bit differently. It's the smaller guards and the guys like Xavier who can pick on a little guard like Wes Matthews. But yeah, so big guys didn't do that. I played very physical as well and played hard against everybody. And there were some guys that, were always ready to try to get me into a confrontation. I know big fights with Tom Chambers back in the day and Mark West and Joe Barry Carroll, and guys that they don't want to see you coming, but you got to play hard against them and they get upset and I'm playing hard. And once in a while things get squared off.
Right on.
Understood. Right on.
You were talking about mental health a little bit earlier, and I know you've been very open about that, and you speak publicly about that. Is that something that maybe we're doing better nowadays than back in your day when you were playing, handling mental health issues?
Well, looks like it, but still, us guys are still guys, and most of the time it's just our nature not to talk about some of the difficult times we're going through. A man has to feel in a, particularly safe space for him to come out and actually share with somebody that he's going through a difficult time, that he needs some help, that he, whatever it might be. And so that's what I keep on pressing forward
did we,
on, is
just
trying to
lose him?
get men to open
I
up
think we
and
just
talk
did.
with each other, to talk to their loved
Brian,
ones,
if you could
let them know
try to get
that,
hold of him and bring him back online, because I think this is a very
I
important
need some
subject.
help. We're in
Absolutely.
a difficult spot. Will you
Jump
be
on,
there
but
with me?
yeah, I want to
That's
want to
hard
say
for guys to do.
that
I do it, and I've
to
learned
everybody
to
out
do
there
it,
listening, we're going to bring
but
James back
it's just
on.
our nature not to do it.
Slight technical
We're supposed
issue,
to be the
but he was
strong,
talking
silent
about
type, provider, the protector.
the issues that
And when we
we have to
can't do
put up
that,
with
it really messes with our
as
mental
men, or
health
sometimes, not
situation.
sometimes. It's a
But
different.
we're all going to go through
It's a different
difficult
thing,
times, and
and
I
as
went
well,
through
it's different.
my share
From
of that
back in
as
the 80s
well.
to now here in 2025.
But I was able to work my way through
I'm hoping that things are
by
going better. I'm
getting
hoping
the
people like
help
him
and the
are
counseling that I
able
needed,
to
the
make it
people
easier
around me
and
that I needed,
for
and work
guys
my way
to
through all of that. So I know that if I can work my way through,
connect with the issues that they're
other people
dealing
can
with,
do
and making
just
sure
as
that
well. And I'm right here to
they're
help out anybody
well
that
up
needs
here.
that kind of help as well.
Some great information that James gave us about, about how it was a little bit tougher in the older days, and how you had to just power through and persevere. And that's actually
Well, I
something
think
that
we lost our
Noah
connection. You guys
Dickerson
still there?
talked about with us a couple of days ago, and he mentioned some of the difficulties that he was going through, how important it was for him to power through,
They're
because
trying to
there
reconnect,
is a
Brian.
better place going forward. And
It's on
it's
their end. Yeah,
fantastic
they
now
they're
that
trying to
Noah's in
reconnect.
a
We'll see
better,
if we can pick it up. If not,
better
we'll wrap up.
situation. He's going to be heading over to China, playing there, similar to James' story about how he started playing in in an international setting to improve himself to get into the NBA.
I want to interject too. You talked about the mental health. You were talking with him. He came out with a book a few years ago called "Celebrating Your Gift of Life: From the Verge of Suicide to a Life of Purpose and Joy."
Yeah,
It
back then.
talks about James Donaldson. He talks about the dark side he went through and how he was able to turn his life around and the people around him to support and everything. And reading this book and the things that I've gone through over the last 10 years,
I don't think they're coming.
it was
back.
very
The
helpful
clock's still
and
ticking, but they're
kind
not
of
there.
inspiring
So
and upbeat. And I'm
they sent
showing
me a
it on
little
our
message
picture
saying
here.
they
So
lost their connection.
hopefully at least one person will see it and want to buy it when they watch when we play back this video on our YouTube channel.
When did that book come out?
I believe it was 2021, around January or February 2021.
Fantastic. And if you're okay with sharing, Soul Man, you don't have to get into detail, but like, what was there in particular that was in that book that resonated with you?
I guess it's okay to be sad about things, but it's okay also to, no matter how big or small the situation is, to have a supporting people around you, whether, it's just your wife or, have a small group of friends, and it's okay to lean on them.
Right on. Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
post for me the other day about it was like you and your wife and and some friends always help get them involved. And it looks like we have James back.
Awesome.
Yep, I'm right back here.
Hey,
Okay,
James, welcome back.
Hey.
We were just about to talk about your thoughts on mental health. And while we're getting you back, Soul Man talked about how he read your book and it resonated with him.
thank you. Yeah, well, and so maybe about 10 years ago, I had emergency open heart surgery. And that kind of put me flat on my back for a good year or so. And in the meantime, everything I had worked so hard for started, frittering away little by little. The long running business I had, my life savings, NBA life savings in the bank, my marriage, my house, and everything I had worked for kind of started falling by the wayside one by one by one. And that really put me into a serious mental health tailspin of, going through anxiety and depression and suicidal ideations and all kind of things. It lasted for a whole year. Probably was leading up to that for a couple of years before I got to that real deep and dark place in my life. And, I reached out to some real close, intimate friends, George Raveling and Lenny Wilkins being two of them. And they, like a pair of crutches, just kind of got alongside me on either side and said, "Hey, we're going to get you through this." George reminded me, he's like, "James, I've known you since high school. And you worked so hard to get where you are. I'm not going to let you throw it all away." And to hear those kind of words, coming from somebody that really cares about you. This is long after my playing days. I'm not a basketball player anymore. I'm just a regular guy now, trying to make it in life. And to have those two guys be there throughout that whole stretch. So it took about 12 months. 2018 was the worst year. And working to pull some intimate friends around me, getting my doctors and some mental health counselors on board, and just really gritting it out. It was a long slog. And, a lot of days I didn't think I was going to make it. But, I can pick up the phone and call George or call Lenny, call one of my other friends, even at middle of the night, and they would encourage me to keep hanging in there. This one, George told me, he's like, "Hey, my best days happened when I was 63 years old." I was like 60 at the time. He said, "James, your best years are ahead of you.
That's
You
awesome.
got to get through what you're going through." And so I was able to chronicle all that and put it into my book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, from the verge of suicide back to a life of purpose and joy. And my life is definitely back to a life of purpose and joy now. Minus all the material trappings. I'm renting a house now. I got to drive an old car. I don't have money in the bank, but my life is so much more purposeful and rewarding because I know I'm helping so many people. I go throughout the state of Washington speaking to our middle school and high school students about mental health awareness and suicide prevention, and just sharing my story and letting them know that, hey, these kind of things can happen to anybody. And of course, the kids, they feel like they're the only one that's going through this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know. But I share my story. I say, hey, millions of people are going through this kind of thing. And we lose a lot along the way, unfortunately. But we don't need to lose you. And I didn't lose myself. I'm still here to help you. We're going into Thanksgiving week this week, and millions of people will be sitting home alone, not enjoying the festivities, not having anybody to share that wonderful day with, in depression, in that deep, dark place. And we'll lose a lot of people during that time and during the holidays. And so we have to reach out for each other. We have to be there for each other.
Yep.
Let each other know that they matter. And more than just a text message, more than a FaceTime, go and sit down with somebody and actually be able to, pat them on the arm or give them a hug around the shoulder. That makes wonders for people who are struggling. And so that's what I've dedicated my life to the rest of the way. And helping young people especially, and even more particularly helping men to realize that, hey, we're going to go through difficult times, but difficult times don't have to be the end of you.
Yeah.
You just need to work your way through it and put an end to that difficult time.
It almost seems like on the other side, then the biggest help you can be with someone who's struggling is your time.
Yes, that's exactly right. A lot of people don't know what they can do to help. They don't know what to say. And I say, hey, you don't have to say anything. Just being in their presence or them being in your presence makes a world of difference. When you're in a mental health crisis, the last thing that you want to hear or the last thing you can process is a bunch of verbiage come at you. You should have done this, you could have done that. Why didn't you do this? A person won't process all that when they're in a mental, they're thinking about what they're going through. And so you're just kind of throwing all those words at them. And the best thing you can do is be a listening ear because sooner or later they will talk to you. They will share with you. It's like, okay, this is what got me here, and I need to figure out a way to work my way back through this. That's when you can come in handy. Maybe some helpful tidbits, some advice, some inspiration to help them through that. But they don't need to be reminded what they could have done or should have done or what you would have done or could have done. Just be there in their presence and be a listening ear is the best thing you can do for anybody.
Absolutely. In summary, I battled depression for last 7 or 8 years, and
Mhm.
this is just one example. I've had some support, especially my wife and God, but being part of the Seattle Sports Union, these guys, Abe and I didn't really know each other in high school, yet he approached me during the baseball game back in 2016, and I joined their team. And then in 2018, we started doing these podcasts, and it's just been inspiring for me. I look forward to meeting people like you, James, and we've met a lot of other people as well. It just keeps me going. It's motivating, and we've all become better friends over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And hey, if you guys are around Seattle, I'm around Seattle all the time. We should catch up in person and grab a bite to eat.
I
Okay?
love that idea.
Let's do that. That'd be wonderful. And talk some more stories or even I'll get you on my podcast as well. We can talk more there too.
That'd be
Amen to that.
fantastic. Yeah,
Definitely.
great.
Great.
I want to ask you, we have a new topic called soul searching that we just recently started. If you, James Donaldson, could go back to when you're, let's say, 22 years old, what's one piece of advice you wanted to give yourself that you didn't happen to know back then that you know now?
Wow, that's a good one. I was so focused back then on my NBA career that I let people kind of come and go out of my life because there was a ample supply of people coming in my life. So,
Right.
especially girls and girlfriends, they came and went like, changing their sheets. And so I probably should have slowed it down a little bit more and treasured those kind of friendships even better. I mean, I've got some old college friends that are still friends to this day, but I look back now and there's a lot of really quality people that had some good advice for me, that I probably should have taken heed to. But I was really focused on my NBA career. I didn't know how long it was going to last. I was bound and determined to make it last as long as possible. Everything else was going to be put to the side until I was done with that, including marriage. And I didn't know I'd play until I was 42 years old. But I kept going. And I might have been better off to, find me a good relationship, get married to her, even in my 80s, and really make that happen. I look at my peers now, my colleagues, and so many of them have great 40-year marriages, 50-year marriages. I'm like, wow, that could have been me. But it's not too late. So I'm going to get it together again soon and fill that void in my life as well.
Right on.
That being said, I was going to ask you what's next for you. Well, put that aside. What else do you have that's coming up for you?
Well, I do a lot of speaking engagements still, especially to civic groups like Rotary and Kiwanis and the Elks and all over town. I'm all over the place. And again, my speaking with the schools and the high schools. But really, I think getting the personal life back in place. It's since the marriage broke up, and since coming out of my mental challenges I had, and I finally came out of all that in 2019. And then we go through COVID, and things are still shut down for 2 or 3 years. And so there's still some voids in my life that I want to fill. And that one would be with a wonderful significant other that I can start building a life together with and not just build this life all by myself.
Well, like George would say, your life is still ahead of you.
Well,
I'm really going to take that advice because I really appreciate that special bond you had with him. That sounded like a really cool person.
Yes.
yeah, he really was. I'm no longer 63 or less than, I'm 68 now. So I hope I still have that life ahead of me.
I think you do.
Yes, you do.
All right.
You get the last say here, Soul Man.
I just want to say there's a lot of things we wanted to discuss, but I'm not going to get to that. I just want to say we appreciate you, and I hope some of our followers watch this and take your advice. And what you're very you're very motivating to me. I didn't realize that until the first time we talked, and then I read your book, and then talking to you again. I mean, you're someone who I look up to, man. I know Abraham does too, but I'm just saying we appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Well, life has been good. And I've had some great people in my life, especially, Lenny Wilkins, George Raveling. Matter of fact, I'm working on a tribute book right now to those two great men and coaches and my high school basketball coach who discovered me in the first place and got me started in the world of basketball. And so a tribute to all three of them for really molding and shaping me to become the man I've become today. So that's my new project I'm working on. I hope to have it all pretty much written by the end of the year and take it to publishing next year.
Cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a really good inspirational book especially for young coaches dealing with young players in high school and trying to get the best out of them. It's a little bit different time now than it was 50 years ago. The kids are so distracted and they have so many technological temptations all over the place. So to keep them focused, I wouldn't want to be a coach today, but kids are still kids, and you reach them in a way that you can touch and get through to them. You could really make a difference in their lives. And so that's what I'm working on now. I do want to say my Celebrating Your Gift of Life book is still available, and you can get it either on Amazon or you can get a personally signed copy from me at celebratingyourgiftoflife.com. And that comes directly to me. I fill out the order and sign it and send it on back to you. Making an audio book of it now with my own voice. And so
cool. Nice.
That'll be out at the end of the year. So it'll be an audio book format as well.
And then you get your podcast on YouTube, right?
And the podcast, Standing Above the Crowd with James Donaldson podcast. If you want to see it and hear it, pull it on down from YouTube, Standing Above the Crowd, James Donaldson.
Awesome. Well, we always like to end the show on a shout out. So somebody, person, place, thing that gives you a little hope and smile on your face, at the end of the day. And I'm gonna give my shout out to a guest that we just had, Noah Dickerson, former UW basketball player. He was excited to be on a show because he got a new contract in China and he was going through some hard times, but persevered, powered through, and he's on the better side now. So
Good. Wow, that's wonderful. I want to give a shout out to one of my recent guests on my podcast, Dick Helm. Dick is 92 years old now, and he was Lenny Wilkins' right-hand assistant coach for about 25 years. They coached here in Seattle and down in Cleveland and Atlanta, Toronto, and New York. A good 25 years or so. Dick was his right hand, and Dick is 92, sharp as a tack still, full of basketball wisdom. And I just wish him and his family the best of health and the best of happiness throughout this holiday season.
Awesome.
Very cool.
I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to my wife's best friend. Just recently discovered that she has brain cancer, and just want to give her a shout out. We're all praying for you. You got this, Angie. You're probably one of the most inspirational people I've ever met as well. So we're all there for you. Just stay strong.
Thank you. Wow, it's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody out there for listening to us here on YouTube and on Spotify. And I want to thank you for being our very special guest, James, now and forever, I think. And I really appreciate this show. Soul Man couldn't stop talking about you. And you got me excited, Soul Man. You got me excited for this one. And it's slight technical issue, but I love the show. And thank you so much for being on. For everybody out there listening to us, please check out all of our great podcasts on, as I mentioned just a second ago, YouTube and Spotify, as well. Check us out on social media at Seattle Sports U on X, as well as on Facebook. And are we on Instagram, Soul Man? Have we done that yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll get
Thank
there
you
one
for
of
the
these days, guys.
reminder.
And we'll see you guys next time.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, man. Take care. Okay.
Okay.